Hello, everyone. My name is Cassandra Williamson, and that image was Pete Hegseth at the U.S. Naval Academy walking around with Admiral Davids. And I have to tell you that that's probably he has the authority to do it. But I'm telling you, what he's doing there at the Academy and all the different service academies in our country right now is absolutely atrocious. You see, what we're trying to produce out of these academies, what are we producing out of the academies, our service academies? Leaders. We hope that some of those leaders can become strategic leaders and big, higher up in rank, that they go along and they learn and advance and they improve and they do things to get them to where they can actually be leaders of leaders, and to be able to understand how to connect with multiple people from multiple backgrounds and bring them together and cause them to be able to carry out a mission that has been practiced and trained upon and practiced repeatedly over and over and over again. But that does not mean, whenever you practice like that, that you can't have viewpoint diversity. Nearly every person there in the military, they know how to do their job. They've been trained at it. They are war fighters or they're support staff for the war fighters. Okay, so, and all of that requires leadership. And you want leaders to be able to think in a way that, is one, they understand their people and they understand the task they've been assigned, and they're able to see the perspective of others because they have either studied it, read it, lived with that, been there, spent time in Europe, spent time in Mexico, spent time in Buenos Aires or Abu Dhabi, wherever. They've spent time there and they understand a little bit about that culture, but they're not so naive to think they know it all. So they keep studying and thinking and planning and reading diverse perspectives. And right now, what we see with Pete Hegseth and this administration is that as much as they preach and preach and preach about wanting to have viewpoint diversity and people who can think outside the box, but at the same time talking about meritocracy and all of this, well, let me tell you something. You can't take away resources from your leaders and expect them to be able to be the best they can possibly be. You want the best and the brightest, and you want them in positions to be the warfighters, to lead warfighters, and to be able to think critically and holistically. You want them to think in a way that they can see where someone else is coming from, not just their troops, but those who they may encounter on a battlefield, or whether that battlefield is cyber or whether it is a hot zone somewhere. All kinds of scenarios where you need people who have experience with diverse cultures and peoples. And what better way to have access to that kind of information than to have it at our academies, where the students and where the midshipmen or the cadets can actually go in and find the books or find the papers or research them on the computer, whatever, to have access to them and be able to understand the perspective of someone else. That does not mean you have to give up your own perspective to do it. It doesn't mean you have to even accept that perspective as your own. No, all it means is you're able to think clearly about that and then incorporate it however you need to do for leading your teams, leading your people, wherever they may be in the world, whatever they're doing in the world. And right now we're seeing not viewpoint diversity being pushed, not academic independence being pushed and academic freedom. No, we're seeing an administration that is trying every way possible to constrain or trying to put in place their level of conformity to their way of thinking. They want their way of thinking inculcated across the board at our military academies. And Hegseth made a point of going after my alma mater, the Naval Academy. I don't know why. Maybe I pissed him off. I'm prone to do that sometimes. But Hegseth is he has no idea what it takes to be a strategic thinker and leader. How do I know that? Have you read his books? Have you listened to him talk and think and try to get things done, say things? He is a broadcaster. He has that going for him, and that's it. But no, there's nothing deep in any of it. It's not there. I don't see it. So what's going on with that? Why? Well, they're not just stopping at our service academies, folks. They're going to all the colleges, all the universities, and trying to make them conform to their viewpoint. And if you have a different viewpoint, well, we're going to take you to court over it. We're going to pull your money. We're going to take command of your colleges and universities. That's what they're working on doing right now. They are trying their best to take control of everything, knowledge sources, every possible thing that they can get their hands on to control who is doing the job that they want them to do. Now, obviously, they're cutting the legs out from under all of their people. They're kneecapping the future. Whenever they start cutting out texts and books and research and all of that stuff, all that knowledge, all that potential experience and perspective taking, it's really crucial to be able to save and move the country forward, but also win in combat, because you don't want somebody who is a little, well, I was getting ready to say a robot, but a lot of robots today are smarter than Hegseth. But anyway, that's another point. Yeah, I don't mind calling them out. I'm going to tell them like it is. Okay. So that's the thing that we're dealing with right now. And I don't know exactly how we can do anything about it. We do have groups doing things right now. They're writing letters to all the leadership of the Academy, the Naval Academy, and I'm pretty sure that the others have things like that in the works too, but it's a general thing. And it's going to take a massive, massive effort. There are a lot of graduates who are really pissed about what's going on right now, trying to stymie education, pull books out, control the narrative, all of that stuff. You can't get good leaders with that. You cannot do it. It doesn't work. The people you want in leadership are, as I've said before, well-read. And whether they read it online or they read it in a book or a policy statement or something, or experience actually lived experiences, then they're going to miss out on that perspective. And that is the kind of openness that allows them to be able to address a complex environment in a rational and consistent and good way, because they've got other ways of looking at things. They've been taught to have perspective, to look at it from multiple angles and different places. There's a story I told one time. I was doing strategic leadership seminar or podcast, webinars, I guess you'd say. But now I was doing these things, and I brought in a team of leaders to help me with that. One of them was Mike Hall, General Mike Hall, who retired in 1999. General Mike Hall, great thinker, great work. The other one was Ed Rockhour, a professor out at the Naval Postgrad School. And I brought these people in, and I said, we want to be able to mentor and lead our leaders, whether that is within the military or in the civilian structure or across America. We want to show them what it takes to do this. And you know what the big thing was? You have to be well read. If you have a limited resource of books or literature that you have read, and I'm talking about stuff you don't agree with, you could be reading Hemingway or The Art of War. It doesn't matter. What matters the most is that you are entertaining those possibilities from multiple perspectives. You want to be able to read Shakespeare. You want to be able to read, Plato and Socrates, and look at those things and gain something from it. You want to read current things as well. To Kill a Mockingbird. Whether you agree with anything in it or not, you should be reading it. Ender's Game, a little science fiction story that came out in 1990 by Scott Card, I think was his name. And that was turned into a movie, Ender's Game. But the book's better. That book was used to help show people how to think outside the box and actually gain that kind of experience, and to train themselves not to be stuck in some echo chamber or silo that restricts what you can say, that polices your language, polices your research, polices your ability to access any other information. No, you're not creating winners, you're creating losers. That's what you're doing when you do that. When you tell your prospective leaders at the academies or in college or anywhere else across this country, whenever you tell them that these are the things that you can study, only these things, you can only say these words, you can only study or do research on these topics, then you're not creating an opportunity for them to win. You're opening the door up for them to lose. Why is that such a hard concept? All you have to do is look at history, and all you have to do is look at today. Look around the Trump administration. What do you see? Billionaires and sycophants. Now, let me just say this before anyone jumps the wagon and goes jumping off on me about all kinds of political stuff. Let me just say this very clearly. Trump has absolutely done some good stuff in the 100 plus days he's been in office. He has shown leaders that they can move fast and break things and get stuff done, and he can do that knowing that a lot of it will be taken to court, but he can move fast, break things, move it forward. He can go talk to people and talk to other countries in ways that no one in the past has ever done so successfully. He's good at it, okay? He is really good at that. The tariff stuff, it needed to be done. Getting Iran to the table over the nuclear weapons production, good. Telling the Houthis to stop and actually getting them to do something about it. Those are the things. Trump's good at that kind of thing. I'll just say it again. He's good at it. He's practiced at it, and I applaud him for that. There are a lot of things I disagree with him on, and this particular one is one of the big. There's two really, but this is the biggest thing that has an impact on our future. This will directly impact the future of this nation, because whenever you start creating siloed leadership and siloed thinkers, you aren't getting the best. Whenever you demand that they only think and do and believe certain things, you aren't going to get people who can actually lead when that environment is challenging, in a difficult environment. We don't know what's coming in the world, but we do know that it will not be anything we've seen today. And it's going to take special leaders who understand that and have seen multiple ways of looking at the world and aren't afraid to do it. That's the whole challenge. They've got to be able to draw on the resources that they have learned over the years of their experience and their academy or their training or their education or their time spent putting a truck together. All of those things give you experiences that will help you as a leader become the best leader that you can possibly be. The thing you want are people who can actually think for themselves. You don't want people who are going to regurgitate everything that you say, which is what Hegseth is doing in our military right now. He's trying to get this so that everybody is doing the same thing that he thinks that they ought to be doing. There's no room for maneuvering. There's no room. Think of it in a battle perspective, okay? If you have no room to maneuver because your command has told you that if you go to the left 10 feet, you're outside the boundary, even though that's where you actually can succeed the best. Maneuverability, thinking adaptively, thinking outside the box, thinking outside the silo. Hegseth's steps, Trump's steps, within our academies, within our universities, within our medical profession through NIH. Everything he's doing is designed to stop independent thinking and research. Just look at the stuff that they've stopped. Well, if you want a good primer of what they're doing, you ought to be reading Project 2025's foreword that was written by Dr. Kevin Roberts. That foreword tells you what they're doing and what they want to restrict your ability to say, do, and think certain things. And that's coming right out of the Project 2025's mandate for leadership. It's on page 4 and 5 and 6. The very first things that they start talking about, that's what they're working on. And they're accomplishing this. They think that they are going after wokeism and all this kind of stuff. They're trying to corral it in and control it and to do away with it and all that stuff. But in the process of doing so, they are creating conformity. They're creating their own silo that will collapse on itself because no one in there is allowed to think for themselves, or at least not challenge the current paradigm. If you don't have leaders who can do that, you will not succeed. You will lose the battles that are coming. So that's my whole point. I'm trying to tell people to challenge all these things. Challenge them. Stand up to oppose them. We can't have complacency right now. We can't have people sitting on the sideline and not doing a thing about it, not getting out there and shouting as loudly as possible within the confines and constraints of whatever safety you need for yourself and security you need for yourself. Sure. But we've got to be doing something about this. Not that we'll have a whole huge impact, but the idea is to stir up the population and to get them moving more and more in a direction so that we can actually do something about it and correct these huge mistakes that are going to impact the future of our country in horrible ways. If we start putting our leaders in silos and telling them, don't think about that topic. Don't even use that word. Can't use the word climate change. You can't use that word. Nope. You can't use the word abortion. You can't use the word gender identity, transgender, LGBT. Or how dare you say that you can go over to the African Museum in DC. Try to take a class there from the Academy. I'm going to bet you that they'll tell you no. Probably not, but hopefully. Anyway, that's the whole point of what I'm talking about today. And everything that this administration is doing is an affront to right thinking, moral thinking, truth, and justice. All you have to do is look at that huge 747-8 jet, Boeing jet, that Qatar wants to give to President Trump. Well, let me rephrase that. They're working out the details to give the plane to the Defense Department so that, it's kind of all right in a way. And there's a rationale for them doing it that way, by the way. You know what the rationale is for that? Well, the United States has given numerous ships to other countries, numerous weapons to other countries. We've given frigates to France that after they've used them up, they give them back to us. We take them and sink them in the Mediterranean. Been there, done that. So I'm telling you, that's why they're trying to make sure everybody sees that it's going to the Defense Department, because that's the same stuff we've been doing around the world, only to us. Even though the Constitution clearly says the United States can't receive gifts from foreign nations and foreign leaders. Well, you know how that goes, right? Never know what you're going to get in the Trump administration. All you have to do is every day just go up and look and check out the news. It's something different. Now, for those of you who want to read more upon my thinking about all of this with the academies, go over to the website, go to the blog. You'll find us listed down there. There's a link for it. Go check it out. Come back tomorrow at noon for midday muster, and at 6, those are Eastern times, for the path forward. And we'll try to keep it going, folks. Thank you so much. Let me see what the comments are down here in the chat box. Who's commenting? Radical rodent. Okay, what you are seeing is people who do not care about you. Oh yeah, I know. Are only a tool for them to use. So far, their plan is working. Right. So where are the leaders? Not theirs, ours. Well, they're being told they have to be in an echo chamber and can't say and use certain words or look at certain things or study certain topics or do that particular kind of research because, it goes against their ideological views. And down here it says it's simple people over academic PC and moralized actions. They are just bullies. So far, their plan is working. Yeah, it sure is. It sure is. All right, everybody. Have a great evening. See you later. Bye.